Ross.
Everybody get low. Everybody gotta hold on to. Every day we gotta grow. Finding people you can hold on to. Everybody get low. Everybody gotta hold on to. Every day we gotta grow. Finding people you can hold on to. But it's time for a word with Sturg. Let's take all the pain, let's take all the hurt. Let's turn it around till the pain doesn't hurt and the world doesn't worry. We all got some problems, we all in a hurry. And now it's time for a word with Sturg. Ay, and now it's time for a word with Sturg. Ay, I've been hurting too, but I'm flipping the mood. If you deal with depression or just stuck in the blues, we can make it out like we've been stuck in some ways. You can change, elevate where you are. Know it's harder some days, but today you a start. Look in the heart, we all got peace but don't know where to start. Time for some healing. With Sturg it'll start. Look in the heart, look in the mind. Better yourself, you'll be better with time. Don't gotta rush, it's one step at a time. Clearing the mental and freeing the mind. Everybody gotta hold on to. Every day we gotta grow. Finding people you can hold on to. Everybody get low. Everybody gotta hold on to. Every day we gotta grow. Finding people you can hold on to. But it's time for a word with Sturg. Let's take all the pain, let's take all the hurt. Let's turn it around till the pain doesn't hurt and the world doesn't worry. We all got some problems, we all in a hurry. And now it's time for a word with Sturg. Ay, and now it's time for a word with Sturg. Ay.
Guys, welcome back to A Word with Sturg. I'm your host, Jon Sturgis, and today is a special episode. So we have our first special guest of the series. This is my boy, Ryan Kellogg. Ryan's a buddy of mine that I met back in my partying days, actually. We used to party together, and kind of after high school, I haven't seen him since, but we kind of reconnected when I first posted about doing the podcast. He was the first one that reached out, sent me a message. Said he kind of liked to share a little bit of his journey, and I thought it sounded great. So here we are today. So to start off, welcome to the show first and foremost, Ryan. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us kind of about the time period during which me and you met.
Hi, thanks for having me today. Appreciate you. And I'm glad you were able to, start this platform. My name's Ryan, and I graduated from Lafayette back in 2009. I've been at home, and I've bounced around some places. Like I spent a year in South Carolina, spent a year in Florida, so I've been able to go out and have a little bit of a journey. But I always kind of find myself back home, and I can appreciate like being able to be with my parents and have conversations with them, because like what I've come to understand is we've all been growing together, and so that's a little bit about that. So I first started battling depression back when I had moved from the south side of Syracuse out to Lafayette. And I think a lot of the reasons why that happened was I had just like my 5th and 6th grade, I had really become social and began to have friends at school rather than outside of my own family. Because at that point, we had always been very family oriented. And so I was always close to like my cousins growing up, my aunts, my uncles. We'd always have big family gatherings. So 5th and 6th grade, I started becoming a little bit more social, and then we moved to Lafayette, and I had to like find all new friends. So I think that's when it began, but I really didn't come to grips that I was battling depression until about 2016, 2017.
Okay, so you mentioned something that I feel like is very important too, and that was kind of how great it is to be able to have those conversations with your parents. Because from my first episode, I'm sure you could tell that I kind of didn't really have those. And it's something that for me growing up personally, like I tried to act like I didn't care about. But like looking back on it and reflecting, like it's definitely something that I kind of wish I did have. Something that if I have kids one day, I want to make sure that I kind of give them what I didn't have in that regard too. I didn't know about you moving out to those places too. So that's pretty cool that you kind of got a little experience spreading your wings out in other places, South Carolina and Florida, you said too. But yeah, that's awesome, man. All right. So my next question then that I want to ask you, let me see here. It's what made you finally realize that you did have to accept it? And what made you basically start to put in the work to kind of make a way out of it?
So I think it was around 2016, 2017. What had happened is there was an event that happened at work, and they ended up sending somebody around from the union that told us that like we actually had mental health covered under our contract. So I was like, okay, then, maybe that's something I might need. So I actually like started reaching out to try and like see somebody, and that actually ended up not working out. But like at the end of the day, like I ended up getting into like Audible books and like different things, like just expanding the type of content that I was listening to, because I realized that I had to fix my mental space. I had heard a story of like a former core worker, like her son had went through like a mental breakdown and like completely lost his like self and who he even was, and like that ended up becoming a big fear of mine. So I was just like, I can't let that fester. So I had to start doing something. So Audible books and meditation were really my first start into fixing my headspace.
All right, that's awesome. That's awesome. It's funny too that you mentioned the fact that they were offering kind of mental health coverage at your job as being the thing that triggered it. So I remember back when I started kind of going through these fits of depression. This is back when I was at the job that I was at for 7 years. Again, I won't mention, where I worked at, but I was there for 7 years, and it was the first time that I left the job. Like, I want to say the first time I left for like a few weeks, but then after that, I stopped going to work, man, for like 6 months. And when I started that, my GM there, he told me that we offered, coverage for stuff like that. And at that time, I still wasn't in the phase where I could accept it, I wanted to kind of deny it. And so, I didn't take that help. I think I might have called him one time. Might have called him one time and like talked about it, but I just feel like it didn't really do anything for me. And again, I just kind of still could not, accept it. So I didn't take the help. I remember, my managers there, they were all awesome. They all tried to get it out of me essentially. And I just wouldn't open up. At this point in my life, I wouldn't open up about any of that. So it's awesome that you kind of took that and you went your own way with it. You found your own way to kind of deal with it. And I kind of did a little bit of that myself too. Like to start off, so I mentioned my ex had gotten me on the impact theory with Tom Bilyeu. That really changed my perspective and opened up my mind to things. But also, like, apart from that, Gary Vee's podcast. And Gary Vee's podcast is more so, I feel like it's kind of self-help and motivation, but it's also like he has a professional level of it too that he tries to encourage people on. But Gary Vee, who else, man? Trent Shelton. That's someone I've been listening to lately that I feel like is just like a warrior for this kind of stuff. And he's a huge motivator, I feel like. Trent Shelton. My other guy, I can't think of his name right now. Anki Richardson, I believe it is. Guy has got like one arm right now, but all those guys, they were very instrumental and monumental, honestly, in my kind of growth and my journey and expanding the content that I was consuming to help me kind of get out of that headspace and get into a clear mental headspace. You mentioned something else to me last night as well that helped you. That was something kind of unique, and I kind of want to get your perspective on that. What was it also that started kind of getting you to see things in a different mindset and help with the depression?
So, one of the benefits of like I have friendships that have lasted like for a long time. I have this friend who actually not too far away from here over in Solvay. I've known him since kindergarten. He's literally been one of my best friends, and he's like one of those people who kind of understands you in ways that you even don't understand yourself. And so it got to a point where he was like, hey, Ryan, would you like to try some shrooms? And I was like, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, I think it's time for you. And he goes, I think it's time, because he had been doing them for a while. He goes, I think it's time for you to try them out. So, one day we go over to his house, and I get an eighth, and he starts to have some, and I have a little bit. And I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this right. I'm going to take the whole eighth, because, that's how the Kid Cudi song was, it's got to split an eighth of shrooms. Right. And so I realized that I ended up having plans like with somebody else later, like to go bowling up at Destiny. So like after about 20 minutes, half an hour, like it's starting to set in. I'm like, bud, could you bring me to the mall? Like I gotta go meet up with my buddy Jamie for bowling. It was like, okay. So we get there and like now it's really starting to set in. And honestly, it was one of the best times I've ever had. Like the thing is with shrooms is I feel like it just intensifies the feelings that you have. So the good ones, like it really lets you get into it. So like one of my favorite things to do is actually pop in and listen to music, and you really feel like you're riding the music. So they've been an incredible part of my journey, and a lot of people like they're kind of scared of shrooms, like because they hear bad stories of bad trips. And honestly, there was one time that I did have a bad trip, but that bad trip was also the best trip that I've ever had because it brought me from to a dark place and then brought me to a place of light and one of the best feelings of like serenity and peace that I've ever felt in my life. And it was like when I truly felt connected to everything in this universe. Like I went outside and I laid out in the grass and I stared at the stars and I did deep breathing exercises, and it was the most hippie shit that I'd ever done in my life. And no, it was a great experience. So like, I dive into those every once few months.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. So I like one thing about this podcast is like, especially when having the guests on for interviews, is that I want to get differing perspectives, and that journey is a little bit different than mine. Like, so my experience here, y'all, and listen, I don't want anybody, I want you guys to have an open mind first and foremost. Like, I think we should all have an open mind about things and kind of do our own research before we judge it. But I did them one time. This was back when I was still kind of in a depressed state. I tried them once. I went to a rave. It was the only rave I ever went to. And my buddy came outside, or he called me outside, I should say. He told me he had some. I went to go try them. My experience was a little bit different, only because I didn't realize, for one. So I take them, I eat them with some pasta real quick. I take them, and I go back inside. The rave ends like 5 minutes later. So, so, so like it just kind of defeated the whole purpose, I feel like, of me even taking them. But I just remember on that car ride home, though, like I felt like Super Mario, you know what I'm saying? When he, gets the mushroom and powers up. So the feeling, it didn't last too long. I want to say I went home and kind of just chilled in bed afterwards. But so I can relate on a much, much more minor level. But when Ryan told me that last night, I was very intrigued, right? And like I said, I like to keep an open mind. So I kind of researched it, not for too long, but I did look. And I saw a lot of different articles about how shrooms are actually being used as a method to treat depression. So clearly there are some benefits there, clearly it does work. Again, you can do it at your own discretion. I'm not telling you to go out and do shrooms, but like I said, have an open mind, do some research. If you feel that you're in a space where maybe you do need to try something different, Google is there. Look it up, do what you want to do. But I think that's a very unique perspective, man. And like I said to you last night too, we all have our own journeys, right? We all have our own paths and different methods in life, to get out of depression or whatever the case may be. So first of all, I applaud you opening up and telling me about that. I guess my next question that I have for you then is, of the methods, all the methods that you stated, do you still do all those things? The listening to the podcasts and the audiobooks, the shrooms as well. Do you still do those things to kind of help you combat depression? Like, I know you're in a much better mental state now, but I know for me personally, I'm in a much better mental space as well. Clearest headspace I've ever been in. But I know that there's still things that I do, the methods that help me to get here. I do those things to ensure that I don't fall back into, the depression, so to speak.
So I do the shrooms occasionally, and meditation I go in and out of phases with, but there's also like things that I kind of try to do on a daily basis, as far as like, what type of music are you listening to? Like, what kind of mood are you getting into from listening to that music? So like on my way to work, like I'm making sure I'm trying to listen to something that hypes me up and gets me in a good mood, because that's going to radiate out. So it's those little things, and then like taking little moments of appreciation and gratitude for what's around you, whether it's your friends, your family. Well, one of the best things that's ever happened to me was my brother had a kid. He's now going to be turning about 5 years old in the next month or so. And so being an uncle has been one of the best things that's ever happened to me. So I try to do my best to take in little daily moments of like just appreciating what I have around me. Because I think one of the things my depression started centering around was I started idolizing my parents' relationship. And so because I wasn't able to have what they have, like I would feel sad for myself. But so instead of that, like I take an appreciation for that. Or like when I go to my friends' weddings, like I sit there and have moments where I truly feel love for my friends and what they're experiencing in these moments that we're having together. And so when you start to do those kind of things, is you really start to fix yourself mentally because you're thinking positively. You're not allowing yourself to get into the woe is me, like why can't I have this? Because at the end of the day, it's not worth it.
That's amazing. So you touched on a couple of key things that I want to reflect on again myself. So for one, the music. The music I feel like is definitely important, right? And I like to listen to like a variety of music. You know, those that know me, they know my playlist is crazy, very, very diverse. But I know that what you listen to greatly affects your mood and it definitely affects your headspace. And I can remember in the time period, like briefly before I got into one of like the worst depression bouts that I had. I'm not gonna say no names, but like I had somebody living with me at the time. They were staying with me, and all they listened to day in and day out was Juice World. And yo, it drove me crazy. And I can just remember one song in particular, like, I'm so empty, I'm just so goddamn empty. And when you listen to that stuff, I feel like, don't get me wrong, first of all, because the people that love Juice WRLD are going to crucify me for this. But Juice WRLD is an amazing artist. Don't get me wrong. You know, God rest his soul. But you can kind of see where his own music took him. You know what I mean? He's no longer with us, unfortunately. But that kind of music, it plays a big part. And like, I don't know. I didn't realize it at the time, but I feel like that almost triggered one of my biggest depressive phases, was just listening to that stuff over and over again.
So I think one of those key things with music is when you listen to that music, you can't not deny that music. Like if you enjoy it, you just can't overconsume it. Like you have to allow yourself to feel those feelings. That's the beauty of this human experience, is we get to feel all of these feelings. So when you allow yourself to feel the bad ones, you can really truly appreciate the good ones when they come. And then like, so you ride the highs. Like life is a wave. So, you know, sometimes you're going to feel like you're on top of that wave, you're riding it and it's great. And sometimes it's going to feel like that's crashing down on you and there's nothing you can do and it's drowning, but allow yourself to feel it. And music is very key as to what you're doing.
Yes, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I definitely agree with that wholeheartedly. And I think that's something that we're going to talk about on a whole nother episode too. I feel like that kind of involves emotional intelligence. But Ryan, you made a great point, man. Being able to feel those negative or those sad or those, again, I won't say bad emotions, because I feel like all emotions can be good depending on how you use them, but being able to feel the emotions and kind of just let them pass and not let them consume you. At that point in my life, I was already like, you know, depressed as it was. So I feel like that just made me go to new depths almost. But another point that you touched on as well was just kind of like appreciating the moments, you know, and being thankful for like the time with your family and being happy for people and things like that too. Like I feel like with the person that I've always been, like I always wanted to be happy for other people, but I feel like when I was in kind of my worst headspace, like I don't know, I feel like I would want to be happy for people so bad, but like I'd just be like, damn, well my life fucking sucks. Excuse my language, y'all. Part of my language, but so it's hard too. You know, it's hard to be genuinely happy for people, or at least to show it. And I feel like that was probably why when I was going through those things, like I didn't really want to be around anyone. You know what I mean? I just kind of wanted to be solo, just in solitude. And that went on for a while too, man. I feel like there was a time where I just did not leave the crib. Like I just stayed inside all the time. But you just made some awesome points there, man. I guess My next question that I have for you then is, so with this journey that you've been on, what is something that you would tell a younger version of yourself, maybe 15, 20 years ago?
I would probably say, like, learn how to commit. Just learn how to commit. Like, because, maybe if I committed to something back in the day, like, that would have been the path. But also, if it weren't for everything that's happened, I wouldn't be where I am here today. So I don't really know if there was anything that I would really change. Yeah. Yeah. So just probably just tell them to hold on. Like, it's not all that bad, man.
Hell yeah, I love that answer. Okay, all right. So in that case, my next question for you was, would you change anything about your journey if you couldn't? You kind of just answered that. And I can echo that sentiment, myself personally. Like, I feel like, so me being 30, and I think I said this in the first episode, when I'm 30, and I probably dealt with depression until I was like 28, like severely. And I can just remember so many different times in my life where like I just wasn't happy and this, that, and the third. And I felt like I wish things were different. Like I wish so badly at those times that things were different. Now, where I am today, I know for a fact that I wouldn't be where I am today if it hadn't been for all those things that I went through. So at the end of the day, man, I feel that I wouldn't change anything about the journey either. And maybe if I hadn't gone through those things, I wouldn't be so passionate as well about kind of sharing this story and this platform with all of you guys too. So yeah, I feel everything you just said right there, man. So my next question, Ryan, is what is some advice that you would give to people who have not found their way, out of the darkness yet, or maybe even don't believe that there is a way out of it?
I would ask them, like, how much are you willing to change your circumstances? How much are you willing to change up what you're doing that has put you in that headspace where you're dark and you feel like there is no light? Because at the end of the day, there is always light. Like, that's how the universe works, baby. With the darkness comes the light. So you have to be willing to change. You have to be willing to open your mind to different things. And, I'm not saying everybody should do shrooms because it's not for everybody. But, switch up what you're listening to. Switch up the type of content. Be willing to change what you're doing. And I think you will be able to finally find the light.
That's a powerful statement right there, man. That is a powerful statement. Because at the end of the day, we're all capable of change, right? And I feel like I've met so many people in my life that just think that they are stuck in their ways, And I know that I was one of those people as well. Like I just thought that I was stuck. I thought that things would never get better. But like Ryan said, man, how hard are you willing, to go to change things? You got to be open to it. You got to be open-minded, and you have to realize part of that starts with realizing that what you're doing isn't working and that you're contributing to your own, depression in ways. Not saying that there aren't external factors as well, but I feel like a big part of getting out of it is kind of taking accountability for where you are, for the things that you do that contribute to it. And then once you take that accountability, then you can say, all right, well, how do I do things differently? What's working versus what's not working? And you just got to be open to doing different things and trying different things. Awesome answers from you, Ryan. I feel like this has kind of been it's been a great segment. Awesome first interview to have, I feel like. And honestly, I definitely looking forward to having you back on the podcast again as well, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Jenks on that too, man. But yeah, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, man. It has been a pleasure. Can't wait till we do this again, man. And until then, just keep doing you, bro. Like, keep doing you. Be blessed. And we're going to see you next time, my guy.